What do you remember, if anything, about that hit you took against Washington?
Um, I remember the route, remember the play. That's about it.
Did you like black out? Like what happened?
Um, I never went unconscious, but yeah, I don't remember it.
What was what was the next thing that you do remember?
Um, just basically there was like a 45-minute window that I don't remember. I remember being in the locker room. Was the first thing.
Was it scary?
Um, I mean, yeah, it's not an ideal situation to have a hit like that, and then have a gap of memory. So yeah, I think anytime you're dealing with head injuries, it's a scary thing. I think understanding concussions and how it works and everything else, I'm comfortable with. I know it was a concussion. I know it was a serious thing, but my ability to recover, I never felt like that was in jeopardy to be fully healthy.
Jason, have you rewatched him play?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you think it was?
I mean, look, I'm not him. I don't know what he was playing or what he was. I think anytime it ends up being a kind of bam hit and collision. I don't know as a defensive guy like how you can consciously make that decision, in a split second. But man, it sure looked like he wasn't trying to make a play on the ball, the way the hit happened. But I've never played defense. I don't know what that's like.
Did he reach out to you?
No.
What was the route that you were running, and what was the play supposed to be?
It was 4 verticals. I was running the vertical number 3, so we call it special seam.
Taysom, what's your concussion history? Did you have a BYU at all?
No, I've had 2. I've had 2 in the NFL. I had one last year, and then this one.
I know there's no such thing as sort of degrees of concussions, but you missed more than 3 weeks. Was that extra precaution? It took the symptoms lingered for a while? Or what was
Well, I do think that there are degrees and levels of concussion. Obviously, this was a fairly significant one. I think for us, having conversation with the doctors, the trainers, obviously when you're dealing with concussions, when it starts to get scary is having the repetitive concussions, and there's this whole protocol in place that the NFL has drawn up, and it's to obviously protect its players, and we follow those protocols. I was having symptoms, and it obviously took a little bit longer than maybe a normal concussion, but there's no way to gauge or put a timeline on how long it takes the brain to recover, and so we just followed those protocols, making sure that we were being safe.
What symptoms were you dealing with, and when did those finally go away?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was obviously the pressure in the brain, headache, and that lingered for several weeks. And then I was having some sensitivity to noise. Those were really the main things. There was some fatigue and stuff like that. But aside from that, those are really the main ones that lingered.
To someone who has no idea what pressure in the brain feels like, how would you describe that to somebody?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is you have a headache, so you have a little bit more pressure that's on different sides of your head or in different areas of your brain. Mine was in the back of my head, and so I think it's just another way to describe a headache. That's what I would say.
So what was it like just to get back out on the field last Sunday? Did you feel like your old self, or how did you feel to get back out?
No, look, I felt great. Obviously, there was extenuating circumstances, and so I think that the coaches were trying to be cautious of what I was doing and everything else. But I think, it's hard. I was at home for 2 weeks watching the team play on the couch, and you have moments like that, and I think it, helps you kind of reflect on what your teammates mean to you, how much the game means to you, and when you have to sit and watch it on the couch, it helps you kind of realize how much you enjoy it. And I know for me, it reminded me how much I love playing the game, and I miss being out there with the team.
Were you at home when James got it?
Yeah.
What was that moment like?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's sickening. I hate to see injuries to anyone, let alone friend. And injuries is obviously something that I'm familiar with, and everyone talks about this physical aspect of dealing with injuries, but the mental and emotional side of dealing with injuries is something that people just don't talk about. And you look at Jameis and his road to where he's at, and man, he's worked hard, and team captain, all of that, and then to just have that taken away and miss the rest of the season, man, emotionally, mentally, it's a difficult thing.
So a lot of guys with injuries, they can go to games while they're out, but is it like a concussion standard thing that you're not allowed to be at games, or is that just because of your symptoms, you were sensitive to light and noise? I'm not sure what the exact protocol is. I was still having symptoms in Seattle when they went to Seattle, so I know for that specifically, I wasn't able to go. We had conversations with the coaches and doctors and stuff about the Tampa game, and that was a game that I probably could have gone to, but I think the coaches and the trainers made the executive decision to keep me home just because there was, the only thing that could come from that would be, increase in symptoms in a loud environment like that. And so, the risk-reward circumstance in a situation like that just wasn't worth it. So they told me to stay home. Were you at the game last week? Oh, no shit, you played.
Yeah. All good.
What's your approach to, the quarterback position now? Obviously, the timing made that unusual to maybe compete for it from the beginning, but Trevor's playing well. I mean, is that something you hope you get another opportunity at?
I mean, yeah, I of course, I think, I've been transparent from day one about what the end goal has been here for me. So I don't really know what to say other than you do your best to stay ready. Obviously, there's this whole other role that's there for me. So I'm trying to find a balance of, staying ready to be able to do that job at a high level. But, it's not always the easy thing because there's this whole other expectation for me that I need to make sure that I'm prepared to do. And, so I'm trying to manage that.
Is it different now? Is it any different now that you're, not behind Drew? You're kind of in this other world where you're preparing for both quarterback and your
Yeah, I mean, with Drew is here, we always had, and even with Jameis and Trevor, there was always this understanding that Trevor was going to be the game day, too, and everything else. So I think there's a little added emphasis for myself to make sure that I'm ready to go. But I'm certainly not planning on. Certainly hope Trevor doesn't get hurt or anything like that because I'm spending a lot of my time and attention making sure that I do this other stuff at a high level. So again, it's a balance that I'm trying to find.
Taysom, we see the injury report, Alvin, we ruled out for this game, but does that sort of increase your role anymore, just what you need to bring to this offense?
I mean, maybe, yeah. Obviously, Alvin's a guy that's going to have a lot of touches, and so without him, how does that ball distribution, play out, and maybe creates more opportunities for me. I'm not sure where he's at on if his ability to play or not on Sunday, but I think the thing that you've realized, and we've seen this, in the years past with Drew, that, man, this is a really good system, and if you follow the system and you go through all the steps and reads and everything else, like, we end up being pretty successful offensively, and Sean does a great job of putting guys in the right spot to be successful, and so maybe there's more opportunities there for me, maybe there's more opportunities for Mark and Ty and Kevin and some of these other guys too.
In preparing for last week, how do you go about that? Like, when did you get cleared? Like, how fluid was that situation where you want to play but you don't
Yeah.
get cleared until maybe midweek?
Yeah, I mean, there's this whole series of things that you have to go through to clear concussion protocols. So I think I became fully cleared on Thursday after practice. I had to go through a full practice. I had to meet with the doctors afterwards, and early in that week I was completing different tests and interviews, and you name it, I was having to do it. But Thursday is when I became cleared.
And Taysom, the offense was kind of struggling last week. You came in and kind of got them ignited. What was that like for you, just to get those guys going with those two completions?
I mean, look, I think any time in the NFL or playing sports in general, it's you gotta try to take advantage of every single opportunity. And my role here has been pretty much that. Obviously, my play count has increased over the years, but it's always been something that I've tried to bring energy when I've had those opportunities from day one. So that hasn't changed. But again, my mindset is to, you just take advantage of the opportunities that you're given. I think it's important that you try not to do too much. And, again, it's one of those things that you just execute inside the offense. And Sean, I think the other thing is, as a play caller and trying to know when the right time is to call, I think that's something that requires a lot of time and skill and talent and everything else. And I think Sean's got a really good feel for that. And then you don't ever have to do too much. You just do what you're asked, and it usually turns out pretty good.
Can you speak to, you've been a part of this offense now for a few years. We've seen it, sometimes ranked in number one in the league in
Yep.
offense, and you're all down now in the rankings. I know the stats sometimes are misleading, but can you speak to maybe how complicated it is even for fans that see it and they want to say, oh, the receivers are not getting separation, or they're looking for something simple
Yeah.
to maybe explain, and just how complicated it is, and maybe how all these factors can lead to.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a fair question. And honestly, I don't know that I have just an easy answer for you. Other than I think we spend a lot of time game planning. Coaches spend a lot of time putting these game plans together, and we put a very specific plan together of what we think it's going to require to win. And right now our defense is playing exceptionally well. And, I think for us, offensively, what we have done well is we've protected the ball, all season long. We have a really good defense. And I think as we get ready to play a game, there's a formula that's in place to win each of these games. And the reality is sometimes that means, there are some games where the coach will come in and say, hey, we might need to score 42 to win this game. But sometimes the formula is, hey, field position is going to be a big thing in this game. And there's a lot of stats, there's a lot of stuff that's put into these game plans. And, hey, we score 14 points, you score 17 points, like, you're going to win this game. And I think sometimes you see the play call reflective of that. So I don't have an easy answer, but I would say that it is all very calculated, and the end result is to do whatever it takes to win. And I think this year has been that more so in the years in the past, where we've become really run heavy, and you know, we obviously throw when we need to, and we did that last week, and we created an opportunity to win the game when we needed to. And so I wish there was an easy answer for you, but I would say some of this stuff is oftentimes by design.
Yeah, and, y'all been very efficient though in certain situations, red zone.
For sure.
Yeah, so I mean, that could speak to why you're still 5-3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Still,
And that's a big thing, you know, when the situations, and again, we've done that this year, and we haven't turned the ball over. And when you have a, you know, top 5 defense and you're not turning the ball over, that's a pretty good recipe. So I think, look, that's what makes Sean, you know, where offensively he puts guys in the right situation to make plays that other teams wouldn't. And, you know, I'm a prime example of that. And I think on a bigger level, you've seen that this year too, where he just puts us in situations to win football games.
So your message to fans would be to trust the process, essentially?
I mean, sure. I think at the end of the day, like we have to kind of step back and remind ourselves, right, that all of us are in this to win football games. That's the only thing that we care about, you know. I guarantee you it's the only thing that the guys upstairs care about. You know, in the locker room, we care about winning football games. So based on who we have in the locker room, on the field, all that stuff is, you know, we're going to put together a game plan that gives us an opportunity to do that. Thanks, guys.
thanks, Dave.